everybody. Thanks again for joining us here at CPC Strategy with Google Shopping to learn more about how to convert higher on Google Shopping campaigns. Just to reiterate what I just had said a little while ago, we will be sharing the recording of this webinar with all registrants. So if you signed up or if you're on the recording on the webinar now, you will get that recording in the next week, so don't worry about that. Additionally, if you have any questions during or following the webinar, feel free to reach out to us at CPC Strategy. You can do so through contact@cpcstrategy.com, and you can also reach us via social using the hashtag CPCwebinar. Going to get started here since we're coming on 11 o'clock. And just to get you guys started, my name is Mary. I'm the content director here at CPC Strategy, kind of a huge Google and e-commerce nerd. So if you have any questions and you're not able to reach CPC, I'd love to help you, delve into your campaigns or learn more about Google or answer e-commerce questions of any nature. So you can totally reach out to me, and my email is mary@cpcstrategy.com. I will be driving the webinar today, so please keep your hands and feet inside the vehicle at all times. Today our speakers are Nicole Primo from Google and Jeff Coleman, who is our Director of Retail Search. Both amazing experts that are going to really help you learn how to convert higher on Google Shopping. Both have lots of experience with Google, and I'm very fond of both of them, so I'm sure you'll get a lot of insight from them today. And again, if you have any questions, use the chat box. If you have any questions, you can use the hashtag CPCwebinar, and we will be sending the webinar recording later next week. Also, following the webinar, there will be a brief Q&A section, so if you have questions for either Nicole or Jeff, you can reach out to them during that section. A little about CPC Strategy before we get started. So at CPC, we help online retailers increase conversions by matching online shopper intent with retail products. Okay, so what the heck does that mean? More specifically, we help retailers sell more on search channels like Google, which is what we're talking about today, by highlighting relevant products for the right search. So matching exact products from a retailer with what searchers are actually looking for online. We've been working with Google since the day that we started, and just recently we actually got accredited as a Google Shopping partner, which is kind of a big deal, so we're excited about that and kind of highlights how we are definitely Google Shopping and Google experts. Additionally, we put a lot of great content out there about Google Shopping, about retail search, and you can find some really helpful webinar recordings, white papers, studies on our resources page, which you can see at this button right there. Alrighty, so moving into our speakers. Again, our first speaker today is Nicole Primo, who is a professional Googler and Google Shopping campaigns expert. I'll let Nicole kind of delve into a little bit more about herself when she starts telling you about how to convert more on Google. On our side, the CPC Google expert today is Jeff Coleman, who is the Director of Account Management here. Jeff has been working with Google for a very long time, and he is also Google Analytics and Google AdWords certified, so he has been working with Google. He knows what he's talking about, and he actually trains our in-house people to manage Google. So if there's anybody who knows anything about Google, it is definitely Jeff Coleman. With that, I'm going to let Jeff kind of take over here and tell you a little more about himself and then also what he's going to talk about today.
Thank you, Mary. Sorry about that. Let me go ahead and start my presentation. So I'm going to be getting into how to convert on Google Shopping campaigns, and we're going to be going over a little bit more on what we've seen as we've transitioned our clients over to the new shopping campaigns, and we'll discuss a few tips on making sure the transition is a smooth one, and we'll also look at some of the new features that Google's rolled out specifically for the new shopping campaign, and I'll wrap it up just with some advice on how to make the transition and how to make that transition a smooth one, and some best practices there. And I believe Nicole is going to get into a little bit more detail on exactly how to build out a campaign and how to structure a campaign. So that section will save her kind of words a little bit, since she's going to be talking in more detail on that. The new shopping campaigns launched to see was that performance would be the same as the old PLA campaigns, but that's not actually what we saw. As we transitioned retailers over to the new campaign type, we saw on average a 25% boost in ROAS, a 4% boost in orders, and on average cost actually decreased by around 29%. I won't speculate on Google's methods or motives here, but typically when we switch over to the new campaign type, we start to see some better results, and I don't think that that's a coincidence. One caveat to this is that over the first few days to a week, traffic might actually dip compared to what you saw with your old PLA campaign. Don't be alarmed, don't worry, stick it out and keep optimizing that new campaign, because typically traffic will come back up to normal, if not higher than normal than what you saw with your old PLA campaign. On top of that, the data collection and reporting tools are infinitely more robust with the new shopping campaign type, and have given us a lot more to work with when it comes to optimizing Google Shopping accounts. I'll get into a little bit more detail on how to get that data and how to use it a little bit later. So let's talk about how to make the switch. You have your old PLA campaign, you're ready to switch to the new shopping campaign. What do? If you follow these steps in order, and there's 8 in total, you should be all set for a smooth transition. So even if you only complete 1 step per week, you'll be all set just in time for the August deadline. First step, create your new shopping campaign. No brainer, right? That's the easy part. And Nicole is going to go into more detail on exactly the ins and outs of setting that up. So I'll let her kind of get into that in a little bit more detail. But for now, the first step basically is just setting it up. And then you're going to pause that campaign. What you don't want is to set up the campaign, start it, you don't finish, and then it's all of a sudden running and collecting traffic. So definitely want to make sure that you pause that right off the bat. Next, make sure you copy over all of your settings. Your budget, bid adjustments, ad scheduling, all of that should be the same. And you can obviously monitor all that through your settings tab. But one mistake that we see a lot of retailers make when they're transitioning over to the new shopping campaign is that they don't actually take all of their settings. They kind of forget about some of the little ones, like the mobile bid adjustment or your ad scheduling, things like that. Definitely want to make sure you get all of those copied over. If you have AdWords labels, make sure to copy those over to the new custom label columns. Not every retailer had AdWords labels, so if you don't know what I'm talking about here, don't worry about it. You can tune out until I get to the next slide. But if you do have them, you want to pay attention. Google allows you to have 5 custom label columns, but you can only put 1 value in each column. With the old AdWords labels column, you could have multiple values in 1 column, but you can't do that with the custom label columns. So if you have multiple AdWords labels, make sure to copy each one into its own custom label column. In this example, you can see our product had 2 AdWords labels for the old PLA campaign. In the new shopping campaign, those 2 labels need to be put into their own custom label columns. So now you're ready to build it out and start creating product groups. Again, I don't want to get into too much detail here because I know Nicole is going to review exactly how to build these out in her section. But the general rule of thumb is that you should try to maintain the same structure here that you had with your old PLA campaign. Unless, of course, your old PLA campaign just wasn't performing well, and then in which case you should probably maybe rethink the structure a bit. But in general, try to keep things consistent in terms of structure so that you're not seeing huge swings in performance when you transition. If in your old PLA campaign you primarily focused on a set of brands, start by building out brand product groups. If you primarily focused on a set of categories, start with product type or Google product category. In general, try to keep the same structure, as that will make the transition go quite a bit smoother. Plus, it'll help you pinpoint any areas or any problem areas just in case something gets overlooked in the transition. The more that you keep consistent, the easier it'll be to pinpoint those problems. Once your product groups are created, it's time to copy over your bids. This can be the most tedious part of the transition, depending on how detailed your PLA campaign was. But you can set bids en masse by clicking the Edit drop-down menu above your product group list. So if you have a bunch of product groups that should all have the same bid, you can easily set all of those bids at one time just by selecting that drop-down menu. And we'll see that in a little bit more detail a little later as well. If the feed has processed properly, you'll see all your brands, categories, and labels in the window that appears when you build out new product groups, along with the number of products in each brand, category, or label. If that product count looks correct, then you're good to go. As you can see here, in our product group for products with the condition new, we can see the number of products is showing to the right-hand side under the products column, and we know from experience that that's the number of products that are in the feed, so we know that that matches up. Our feed is good to go. Turn it on. This is D-Day. It can be an exciting time for launching your new campaign. One quick tip here, remember to leave your old campaign on for a couple days, just in case you make a mistake when building out your new campaign. You don't necessarily have to leave your old campaign on. You could be just fine turning it off right when you turn on your new campaign. I like to err on the safe side of leaving the old PLA campaign on. That way, if you made a mistake when building out your PLA campaign, or maybe you didn't transfer all the settings, maybe you accidentally left your budget as $1 instead of upping your budget, or something like that, then that old PLA campaign will still be running. It'll still collect all of that traffic that you might have missed when building out your new one. If everything looks good, then you can go ahead and pause your old PLA campaign, and you'll be up and running with your new one. Now we can start to get into some of the features that Google has rolled out with the new shopping campaign type, as well as some just general best practices. So we have a quick video playing on this slide showing you how to add the impression share metric. And we'll have a series of videos playing on the next few slides showing you how to actually add some of these new features and how to take advantage of them. So if you want, you can just tune me out and watch the video, and that'll show you how to get some of these metrics. But the first one that we're going to go over today is the impression share metric. And if you're following along with the video, I'll just kind of quickly guide you through how to add that. You navigate into your campaign, navigate into your ad group. You'll see a Customize Columns menu at the top left-hand side, right above the graph that's showing you traffic and historical performance. If you click on that Customize Columns button, you'll see a Competitive Metrics menu on the left-hand side, and that's where you'll find all the new competitive metrics. So benchmark click-through rate, benchmark CPC, which is the benchmark bid, as well as impression share. In shopping campaigns, you can't get impression share on an ad group level. You have to go into each ad group to get it on a product group level. That impression share metric, for those of you who are more familiar with the text ad side of things, tells you the percentage of times your product ad is being displayed for relevant searches. So in general, you want your best converting products to have a high impression share. Product groups with a low impression share aren't getting that much exposure. So if the ROI is positive, then you should be increasing your bids on those product groups to increase your exposure as long as the ROI stays positive. Next one we'll go over is the bid simulator. Next to the bid for each product group, you'll see a little square button with a graph on it. If you click on that graph, the screen will appear with the estimated traffic and impression levels at different bids for that particular product group. And the graph on the right of that screen that's going to show up right now illustrates the diminishing effects of increasing a bid as your bid gets larger, but it also illustrates the improvements that you can get if you're at a very low bid and you start to increase that bid. The bid simulator is available on most but not all categories and brands. Google needs a relevant amount of data about a particular category or brand in order to estimate what a change in bid is going to do. So if it doesn't feel like it has enough data, or if Google doesn't feel like there's enough data to make that estimation, you might not see impression share, but we do tend to see it for the majority of product groups. In general, this is a great tool to use to estimate what kind of lift or potentially drop you might see from increasing or decreasing your bid. We can see in this example that traffic doesn't really start to pick up until around a 90-cent bid. So any bid tests I run below that aren't likely to yield much of a difference in results. Conversely, if I'm at the $3 bid mark, I can see that I really don't lose much visibility by dropping to the $255 bid. But I'm saving almost $600 in weekly ad spend. So there's a pretty significant difference there just by bringing the bid down a bit. It's also a great illustration of just the general principle that your bid decreases become even more effective at lower levels. So if I'm at the $2.50 bid, a 50-cent increase in bid doesn't have as large of an impact on traffic as it would if I was moving from, say, a 50-cent to a $1 bid, where we can see the change is much more significant. SKU level reporting. This is one of the coolest features about the new shopping campaign type, and as data junkies, it's probably our favorite feature. You can run these reports on either the campaign or the ad group level. If you simply navigate to the Dimensions tab, and this is true of any campaign independent of the shopping campaign, but for the shopping campaign, if you navigate to the Dimensions tab, you can click on the View drop-down menu and select Shopping, then select Item ID, and you'll start to generate that report. You can also download the report by clicking on that little square button with the down arrow next to it. And that's true, again, of any report that you generate in AdWords. This is probably the most important slide in my presentation. So if you don't remember anything else from this presentation, please remember how to generate these reports, and please start using them as soon as possible to implement product-specific bid strategies. These reports are great for identifying top-performing SKUs that you want to bid up on, or poor-performing SKUs to bid down on. Like I said earlier, this is definitely the section that our analysts use most when optimizing campaigns, because in order to manage a product-based campaign, you need to know how individual products are performing. So you definitely want to monitor this section. This is also probably the most underutilized strategy that we see when we're auditing campaigns, is that retailers don't have an effective method, or they just don't have a method at all of increasing bids or decreasing bids on the product level. Sometimes they tend to leave things a little general. So if you can start to implement a product level bidding strategy for even just a small subset of your products, you're already going to be ahead of a lot of your competitors. Let's talk a bit about mobile traffic. We've seen huge increases in mobile traffic across verticals so far this year, but conversion rates on mobile traffic are notoriously low, even if you have a mobile optimized site. Having a mobile optimized site can dramatically improve your conversion rates compared to not having one, so I definitely encourage you all to invest in one if you haven't already. And either way, with so much mobile traffic coming in these days, you're bound to get some sales from it. But again, the conversion rates and ROI do tend to be a bit lower than what we see on desktops or tablets, so make sure to bid accordingly. I recommend starting with a negative bid of around 25 to 50%, and you can always adjust from there depending on performance. And again, I've got a quick video on the next slide showing you how to actually set a mobile bid in your campaign. So here's how you set that bid. If you navigate again to the Settings tab, you'll see Devices tab appear below that. Click on that. Click on the bid adjustment next to mobile devices, and you can either increase or decrease your bid here. Like I said in the previous slide, typically I recommend starting off with a negative bid of 25 to 50% to start out, depending on your budget or your goals. Once you have about 30 days of conversion data, then you can start to adjust your bid based on performance. I wouldn't make huge changes in your bid adjustment here. Typically, I like to start with 5 to 10% changes just to avoid large swings in performance. But if you're seeing really strong performance in mobile traffic, you can always go with a more significant bid increase. Conversely, if you're not seeing a lot of volume there or a lot of velocity there, you can go with a more significant bid decrease. It's going to depend on the performance that you're seeing for your individual campaign. Geo-targeting. So you can also set bids according to the geographic location of the customer, and I'll walk you through how to set those bids in the next slide. Inevitably, you're going to see some states perform better than others, so this can be useful just from an ROI perspective. However, this can also be useful for retailers with brick and mortar stores. So consider increasing your PLA bids in cities or areas where your stores are located in to help build your brand presence in that area, potentially drive more customers into the stores. Typically what we see with those types of local campaigns is that they just tend to, A, naturally convert better because people are aware of your brand presence, and B, like I said, they can help drive people into the store. So it's typically a best practice to increase your bids in those areas where the stores are located. You could also use that same section to exclude areas you don't ship to. So for example, if you can only ship to the contiguous 48 states, then you probably should not be buying traffic in Hawaii or Alaska. So you would downbid on those states here. And again, another quick video showing you kind of where to set those geographic bids. So you can start by selecting that Settings tab and then click on Locations. And if you scroll down, you'll see this bright red button. You can't miss it. It says Plus Locations. Once you click that, you'll get the option to start adding states or cities or different metro areas that you want to bid on. I won't actually take you through that process here because it can take a few minutes to actually add all the states that you want. But if you want to start by having just a standard bid modifier across every state, or start by collecting data across every state, you could just paste in a list of all 50 states into the Locations tab, and then you'll start collecting data for every single state. So just as consumer habits can vary by device or location, we also see consumer behavior vary by time of day. Not all shopping hours are created equally, and you don't want to waste money on times that aren't converting for you. Typically, we'll see buying patterns follow a sort of bell curve throughout the day, where orders will pick up in the mid-morning hours, peak around the early afternoon, and then start falling off again later in the evening. You'll want to monitor those patterns for your own store, but you should be bidding down during the poor converting times of the day and bidding up during the higher converting times of the day to help shift your budget into the parts of the day where customers are searching for you and customers are likely to buy. You want at least 60 to 90 days of data before making large-scale adjustments here. And the reason I say that is that if you're only looking at one particular day or one particular week, it's very easy to look at maybe one part of a day, or maybe Monday of the first week had a bad afternoon. That might not be indicative that Monday as a whole in the afternoon is going to convert poorly for you. It might just be indicative of one poor day. Or maybe that Monday was Memorial Day and you didn't get a whole lot of sales anyways. So you want to make sure you're giving yourself a large enough sample size to evaluate whether or not certain times of the day or certain days of the week are going to be profitable for you. So that's why I always say I would recommend using 60 to 90 days or 2 to 3 months worth of data when you're evaluating changes here. To set up an ad schedule, again, we have another quick video for you. To set up an ad schedule, you can go back to your Settings tab, select the Ad Schedule tab, and then scroll down, and you'll see a big red button that says Plus Ad Schedule. Seems pretty similar to the Locations tab, huh? Once you click that button, you'll have the option of setting different bids for different times of the day. And just like with the Locations tab, you have a lot of options here, so I won't take you through every single possible option. But one thing to keep in mind is that you have a maximum of 6 time blocks throughout a day. So you can't break out 24 different segments for each hour of each day. You have to limit it to 6 groups. So typically what we start out with is segments from midnight to 4 a.m., 4 a.m. to 8 a.m., 8 a.m. to noon, and then the same segments in the afternoon. And you'll get 6 4-hour time blocks throughout the day that you can use to start evaluating performance. And those time blocks aren't going to be right for every single retailer, but they usually provide a good starting point for you to try and figure out when during the day are your sales coming in. Then over time, as you collect data on that, you can start to customize those time blocks. I'll finish up my section today just by quickly touching on a customer-facing optimization you can make. Google Merchant Promotions are a great way to get more visibility for your ads, and best of all, they're free, which is nice. Mary is going to be tweeting out the link to sign up for Merchant Promotions. If you haven't already, the program's open to anyone, so please do so. Even if you don't have a promotion ready just yet, you might as well sign up, get into the program, and then when you do have one, you're all ready. Once you create a merchant promotion, any products you select as eligible for that promotion will get a cool new special offer link under the ad advertising your promotion. And as you can see, it can definitely help add some visibility to your ads. One caveat is that that giant blue arrow that we put there is unfortunately not part of the program. We added that. So sorry if I got your hopes up about getting that giant blue arrow. You can use that link we tweeted out to apply for the program, and once you do, you'll need to create a special data feed just for your promotions. Don't worry though, it's pretty simple. You only need 1 row per promotion. So you can even create it manually if you want to. It shouldn't take that much time. One requirement is that a merchant promotion has to add value for the customer that they wouldn't get just by visiting the site. You can't use this to advertise a sale price that a customer would get just by going direct to your site. This would be for a special coupon code, for example, that a customer could use to get an additional discount on top of maybe whatever the current list price is. That's just one example, but the rule of thumb is you have to offer an additional value beyond what the average customer would get. But again, if you do have that type of coupon or something like that, it's really easy to apply for the program. Again, it's free. I definitely encourage any retailer out there who can take advantage of it to do so, because you get that cool blue link and it helps your ads stand out. And this will wrap up my section. I'll just leave you guys with a quick reminder, and Nicole will touch on this a bit during her section too, that your deadline to switch over is only a couple months away. But I would encourage you to start making the switch as soon as possible. I know that just the act of switching to a new campaign type can be daunting, but there are quite a few new features that are available with the new shopping campaign type that we went over today, or that I just went over in my section. And Nicole will get into a little bit more about how to build out a new campaign and how to structure it in her section, and some additional best practices. So with that, I will turn it over to Nicole.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jeff. Nicole, if you want to go ahead and share, this would be great. Thanks. Awesome. Thanks, everybody. So hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having me, and thanks to CPC Strategy for inviting us to join this webinar. Just a little bit more about me before I dive into my content. So my name is Nicole Primo, and I'm the Partner Education Manager for Google Shopping. So what that means, kind of in layman's terms, is that I sit between kind of our Google Shopping product team as well as our product specialist, and help develop the best practices that we share with our partners, including you guys, including CPC Strategy, to make sure that you're successful with Google Shopping and with our new shopping campaigns. All right, can we go to the next slide? Perfect. Great. So I want to take a moment and do a little bit of zooming out. So, we covered some great best practices, and now that you have a sense of what it will take to upgrade your campaign and maintain your return on ad spend, let's take a step back and talk a little bit about why Google is making this change and how you'll benefit from not only upgrading before the end of August, but actually taking some time to upgrade in a way that you're setting yourself up for the very important Q4 holiday shopping season, and you'll be taking advantage of the new shopping campaign features that allow you to optimize even further than you were able to with regular PLA campaigns. So I think what we can talk about here is that, Google Shopping allows you to connect your products with the people who are searching for them. So in this image, you get the sense of this guy climbing up the mountain. And what we want to show you is that, this person climbing up this mountain at some point had to buy his gear. So very likely he was inspired to take a trip, perhaps watching a National Geographic show or something like that, pulled out his phone or tablet, did some quick Google searching, and found the jacket, the boots, the pants, the backpack that he would need for this expedition he was taking. So with product listing ads, you're very easily able to submit your product info and then target the shoppers in the moments that matter when they're ready to evaluate products and make those purchase decisions. Next slide. So within that context of product listing ads, we have heard that retailers are finding success, which is great. People are finding that they improve their revenue by using Google Shopping and product listing ads. So essentially, product listing ads give them a digital shelf for showcasing their inventory to online shoppers. Next slide. So in our conversations with retailers, we also heard that they are seeking operational improvements that allow them to understand what's happening with their campaigns and deep dive into their products a little bit better. We have also heard time and again that retailers organize, plan, and price their inventory first and foremost in order to manage their business. So what this means from our perspective is that in order to simplify how you advertise your products with Google, we need to give you the same type of levers that you would use in managing your store. So some examples that we heard time and again is based on trends and seasonality. You want to be able to easily promote, the products that match that seasonality and that trend by some simple things like moving them to the front of your store or moving them near the cash register. And you want to be able to do this same type of thing in your equivalent in your campaign. So, next slide. We want to give you the ability to manage your campaigns like you manage your store. So the first key benefit of shopping campaigns is that they provide this retail-centric campaign management structure. Previously, as many of you probably know, you have two standalone objects with your data feed on the one hand and your shopping campaign on the other, and it can take considerable work to manually map and match those two things. Now with shopping campaigns, you're able to browse your products directly in AdWords, and you'll see inventory numbers based on different criteria from your feed. So if you know a certain brand has the majority of your inventory, you know that's a key place that you need to invest more time and resources to manage. And it's very simple to manage your products now with what are called product groups. It's very easy to associate bids with groups of similar inventory or even individual items, and then also promote your sales with tiering campaigns like campaign priorities. Nicole, did we lose you there? Oh, sorry guys, I think we have temporarily lost Nicole in the ether. She's making some really great points about Google Shopping campaigns, modeling how your retail store would be in the real world, for your brick and mortar, and how Google's trying to align those. Touched on some of the new features that Google Shopping campaigns provide with the new campaign. And this slide right here is reiterating Jeff's point and highlighting the Google date to switch over to shopping campaigns, which is happening in August. And again, it's really important that you get started to make that switch ahead of time, because that switch will happen automatically on Google's side in August if you don't make it ahead of time. And Mary, I am back. Apologies for that. I got booted off the line.
Uh-oh.
I've never had that issue before. So sorry about that, Nicole. No worries. So yeah, I can just pick up where it sounds like you left off, which is talking about the switch that will happen in August. Is that right? You got it. Awesome. So yeah, I didn't hear what Mary said. I'm sure it was all perfectly accurate, but I'll just summarize what I'm sure she said, which is essentially we've heard great feedback from people who have already switched to shopping campaigns. And so with this, by late August, we're asking that all advertisers upgrade their regular PLA campaigns to a shopping campaign. If you don't, and you have an unpaused regular PLA campaign running at that point, we'll automatically upgrade you, but we strongly encourage you to do it on your own so that your campaign is set up and optimized the way you want it heading into the shopping season. Great. So now that we've covered kind of what are shopping campaigns at a high level, let's dive into some upgrade basics so you can see the tactical things you'll need to do. The good news is that there are 3 basic steps to upgrade your shopping campaign, all of which are fairly simple. So think about it this way. The first thing you're going to do is, of course, create a shopping campaign. Like we said earlier, the next thing you'll do is pause your regular PLA campaign. And last but not least, you'll dive into those best practices that we covered in order to customize and tailor your shopping campaign. So it seems pretty simple, but just for the sake of 100% clarity, in order to create a shopping campaign, you're going to click the New Campaign button, and then unlike previously where you had to choose Search Network only, this time you'll be choosing Shopping. So what you can see here is we're emphasizing that shopping is its own campaign type with its own campaign management structure, so it gets its own campaign subtype and own workflow. So again, click New Campaign and choose that shopping option. Next, once your shopping campaign is, you've set a budget and a bid, you're going to want to pause your regular PLA campaign so that you're not competing against yourself. Now, if you're planning on doing a more complex build-out, you may not pause your regular PLA campaign right away, but if you do want to pause right away as soon as you create that new shopping campaign, keep in mind that it can take about a day for that shopping campaign to start running, so usually within 6 to 8 hours, you're good to pause that regular PLA campaign. So the last step here is to start customizing your shopping campaign by subdividing your product inventory into those separate product groups that we talked about a little bit earlier. Again, product groups are a way to organize and bid on your products either at a group or an individual product level. So in this sense, a product group is a way for you to select which products you want to bid differently on or want to be able to manage the bids for separately. So you can see in this screenshot that this retailer is subdividing inventory specifically for their apparel and accessories and their electronics categories. So by breaking out these products, they're able to set that 30-cent bid for apparel, 75 cents for electronics, and then all the other inventory in their data feed gets a 50-cent bid with that everything else product group. So let's walk through an example like this together. When you create that shopping campaign, you are automatically started with what we call an all products group. So simply by setting up a campaign, what you're doing is effectively setting one bid for 100% of the inventory that's eligible in your data feed. So this makes it very simple to get started, but obviously you're going to want to get a little bit deeper and bid differently based on different categories, which is what you can do by subdividing. So to start subdividing, it's very simple. You'll click the plus button next to that All Products group. What you see here is that pop-out window that is pulling values directly from your individual data feed so that you can know what's available in your feed and what you want to start subdividing. Within this window, you have the drop-down menu that gives you 6 main options for how you'll start segmenting your products into product groups. So at the top here, we have category, which pulls from the Google products category in your feed. We have brand, item ID, if you want to target individual products, condition, so that's for those of you who have large used or refurbished inventory, product type, which is your own categorization of your products, as well as one of your custom labels. So once you choose which attribute you'd like to start subdividing by, in this case we chose category, you can now choose which values from your feed you actually want to break out. So keep in mind that you can break out 100% of the eligible categories, or you can just break out a handful of your most important ones. So in this case of Acme Superstore, again, they chose to break out that apparel and accessories and electronics categories. Those categories are very high margin, very high volume, and they include a lot of Acme Superstore's inventory. So they want to be able to manage the bids on those 2 categories in particular, and then everything else can just kind of fall into the catch-all. So here's what we're left with. Now we have this campaign broken out into 3 major categories like we talked about earlier. Again, I would just note that any time you start subdividing, the everything else in all products or everything else catch-all is automatically created for you. So again, think of that as just your way of streamlining your management so you're focusing your effort and your time on the categories or the products that will really move the needle in terms of your return on ad spend. So obviously apparel is a huge category and can include many subcategories. So let's assume that I want to subdivide further. I can do this up to 7 times total, so 6 additional from the point of where I am now. And to do it, I'd follow the same process as before, clicking that plus button, choosing which attribute I'd like to subdivide by, and then following that process. So once I'm done breaking out my additional products like jewelry and shoes, for example, you can see that I have a lot more specificity in terms of how I can promote and bid on the product categories that are important to me. Note that I can also do this by brand, so if there are particular brands of jewelry that I really want to focus on, or even particular individual IDs, I can continue breaking out to whatever level of granularity I look for in terms of managing my products. So a couple of other things to note is that you'll notice that the bids are roughly correlated with the individual categories' presumed return on ad spend or margins. So for instance, jewelry is probably higher margin, so that has a higher bid, and my everything else typically has the lowest bid because it's more generic. It's kind of that catch-all category. One last note is that you can see I've chosen to exclude costumes and accessories. It's not exactly costume time of the year, so maybe I just don't want to bid on that at all. I can click on where I would have the bid, and then excluding it is an option. Essentially, that means that those ads are not eligible to show, even on relevant search queries. So with that said, I'd encourage you to be thoughtful about your exclusions because, again, your products only match when people are looking for them. So, you know, people have costume parties year-round, and you may want to choose to not exclude that despite it not being peak costume season. So with that, I will turn it back over to Mary.
Great. Thank you so much, Nicole. And again, guys, I apologize for that little bump earlier. We had a lot of people live tuned in today, so I'm anticipating that's why that transition happened. Again, thank you so much, Nicole. Personally, I know that the logistical elements of this kind of stuff, especially when you're transitioning over to something new, can be really scary. And so I appreciate that walkthrough. I think it was significantly helpful, made it really clear in terms of what actions would be appropriate and kind of going into those details. So that was really helpful for me. Thank you for that one. Just for everybody else, we're going to move into the question and answer section of this webinar now. So if you have been entering questions in that chat box, we're going to try and answer all of those, in addition to other questions via social or email. And again, if we are unable to answer your question during this time period, don't worry, we will reach out to you via social or via email. And if you don't get a response, feel free to reach out to us that way as well. So just going to dive into some questions that we have going on to here. So I have a question from an individual from India, and I apologize, I'm not going to say your name because I don't think I can pronounce it properly. But she wants to know, when I do item level bidding, is enough data amassed that I should be able to see the benchmark data?
So not necessarily, no. So in my experience, when we're going through and looking at product level performance, if you break out by individual ID, oftentimes there isn't enough data amassed to get a benchmark CPC or an impression share or a benchmark click-through rate. Sometimes there will be, but it's much less common. Typically that data is much more readily available when you're building out product groups for an individual category or a brand, or a group of products using a custom label, things like that. So a product level bidding strategy can definitely be an important part of the campaign, but you might sacrifice some of the competitive metrics if that's the only strategy that you're using. So you definitely want to use that in conjunction with some other brand level product groups or category level product groups, or larger product groups, so that you can get that data.
Yeah, and I would just add in there that we actually don't show benchmarks for ID level product groups. In fact, so yeah, just like you were saying, it's great to use product level ID or ID level product groups for very important products to really bid up on those best sellers, those high margin items. But what you are sacrificing is that benchmark data. So we encourage you to use them in moderation and as part of a more cohesive kind of overall strategy where you have your higher level categories that drill down only into the most important ID level products.
Lovely. Thanks, guys. We've got a question here from Sam about the August switch. He wants to know what happens with the automatic switch in August.
So I can take that one. With the auto upgrade in August, essentially Google will be taking any unpaused, so active, regular PLA campaigns and transitioning them over to shopping campaigns. So the reason we're encouraging you to kind of do this process on your own in advance, well in advance of that deadline, is simply because, when that automatically happens, the campaign may not be set up and totally optimized the way that you really want it to be. So when you take the time to upgrade on your own, you're ensuring that your campaign is well set up to suit your business goals and that you actually have time to experiment and continue optimizing in advance of the important holiday season. So again, to kind of answer your question most directly, it's simply that when that deadline happens, the auto upgrade will transition any regular PLA campaigns to create new shopping campaigns for them and then pausing the regular PLA campaigns.
Very clear. Thank you so much. Kind of a similar question from Michael. He wants to know, so would you not run the old PLA format congruently with the new Google Shopping Network? Do they compete for space?
So I guess I'll just answer from a strategic point, and then maybe Nicole can answer the competition point. But in terms of running them concurrently, so my suggestion around leaving the old PLA campaign active for a day or two was really more of a safety measure. I would not recommend running them congruently for an extended period of time. If you're going to make the switch, you should make the switch over to the new campaign type. Like I said, you can leave the old one running as a safety measure, but you don't want multiple campaigns competing against each other if they're going to be targeting the same products. As a general best practice, with the new campaign, with the old campaign, with any campaign, you don't want multiple campaigns targeting the same products competing against each other. And that's what would, in effect, be happening if you ran the old one alongside the new one. And so you only want to have one campaign targeting a particular group of products. And so I would recommend pausing the old campaign as long as the new one is set up properly, and as long as you've given it that 1 to 2 day cushion to make sure that the new campaign is going to be up and running smoothly. But Nicole, I'm not sure if you had any other points to add to that too.
Yeah, I think that you're absolutely spot on, well said in most cases. I would say that for those of you who maybe want to kind of slowly start to upgrade and test certain product categories before you fully commit, there is a way that you can do it. It is a more advanced best practice, so I'll just talk through it quickly, but definitely submit additional questions if you have questions on this. Essentially what you can do is with shopping campaigns have a feature called campaign priority. It's a setting that allows you to tell Google if there are 2 bids for one product across multiple campaigns, the high priority campaign should get preference over the low priority campaign, for instance. So if you did want to kind of slowly upgrade, although it's not advisable in most cases, you could set your shopping campaign to high priority, exclude the everything else in all products target, and then kind of start running new products through the shopping campaign despite having both campaigns live. So that's a more advanced strategy. I would say in general it's probably not the best strategy. If it is great if you can just move over all at once. But if you do have to do some tests for them,
very awesome. A little bit more of a holistic question here from Carlos. He wants to know, can you use Google Shopping for B2B?
Yeah, absolutely. We have some retailers that use Google Shopping for those purposes. I think the pool of people that are going to be doing those types of searches that are going to be looking for bulk orders is going to be a little bit smaller, but obviously you can use Google Shopping to target those retailers too. A lot of the time it depends on your vertical, I guess, but if you're going to be running a B2B type of campaign, you're also going to be dealing with businesses or organizations or maybe schools and other groups that are going to be using other methods to research you as well, and so you want to make sure you're visible on all those marketing channels. But yeah, we do have retailers that have seen some success with B2B advertising. They tend to use Google Shopping use Google Shopping as a kind of cross-channel promotional tool. So they'll be understanding that their retailers or that their customers are probably going to be calling in to ask for assistance or calling in to get price quotes or things like that. And so direct online conversions might not be great, but it'll definitely be important to monitor things like phone call conversions in those instances, or monitor requests for more information and things like that. So you can definitely use Google Shopping in those instances for B2B types of advertising. It's just the conversion that you're going to define is going to be a little bit different. You might not be looking directly at an online sale. You might be looking more at, like I said, phone call conversions or email signups where people are requesting for more information, and we do have clients that use it in that respect as well.
I would just add that basically if you can sell it online, or if you do sell it online, you can pretty much use Google Shopping as a general rule. I would encourage you, of course, to look at the policy restrictions just based on some downloads and some things like that for a limited set of products that are not eligible. But certainly, give it a shot. And like they said, it's absolutely worth testing at very least.
Very cool. Thanks, guys. This is kind of a little bit more of a specific question going back to merchant promotions or special offers. John wants to know, could you use a merchant promotion to advertise free shipping and no sales tax?
So free shipping would be something that, and Nicole, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but you can't use a merchant promotion for that specifically because, again, free shipping is, I believe, something that your customer would already get. If it's the case that your customer is getting free shipping after using some sort of a coupon, or that not every customer gets free shipping unless they do something, then you can use that as a merchant promotion. But typically, I would actually advertise free shipping in the promotional text field, and I know that the nomenclature is a little confusing because it's very similar, but there's actually a promotional text field that you can take advantage of within the AdWords login, where you can put pretty much any ad copy you want as long as it complies with Google ad policies. And that's something you could put there. You could put free shipping, no sales tax, and you won't get the blue special offer link. It'll be visible in a hover over. But that's one way to take advantage of that. If you do offer free shipping, make sure to include that in the data feed. You can put, let's say you have a shipping cost column, you put 0 in there, then you'll get this nice little message that Google will put there automatically that'll say free shipping next to your ad. And so you get a little bit of a call out in that way as well. But in terms of just specifically the merchant promotion program, by default that's not really something you would use, or you couldn't use a merchant promotion for, unless, like I said, free shipping was like an additional value that the customer needed, some sort of coupon code in order to get.
Yep, nothing to add from my side. Yeah, that's a good way of thinking about it. It has to be added value. That's not just a standard offer.
Cool.
All right, going to move into a question specifically for Nicole. Elias wants to know, are there any blog posts you or your team wrote to help educate us about the new campaigns?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would recommend, if you're not familiar with it already, looking at 2 blogs. One is the Inside AdWords blog. If you just do a Google search for it, it should come up for you. And then the other one is the Google Commerce blog. So between those 2, that's typically where we promote all things that are happening, with Google Shopping, with campaigns, with other commerce-related, like merchant promotions, etc. So certainly take a look at those, and we do our best what's going on and how we're thinking about these transitions or these changes, but also to give you some collateral. So we have a great series of tutorial videos that show you kind of the basics of shopping campaigns, that walk you through the data feed changes that might be required. So yeah, we certainly do our best to get you what you need in order to be successful. And just a note there as well, that if you are in the Inside AdWords blogs, they all have a Google Shopping tag, so you should be able to easily search and filter for the ones that are relevant.
Yeah, those are both great blogs that we follow here, so I definitely recommend that you guys follow both of those.
Great. Thank you for that insight, guys. Just sorting through the questions here. I have a couple questions about the difference between product groups with the new campaign. Can you maybe just elaborate on the difference between how product groups are with Google Shopping campaigns, as opposed to the old format?
Sure, I can take a stab at this one at first. So basically, in regular PLA campaigns, we called them product targets. In shopping campaigns, we call them product groups. And so essentially, if you're familiar with the regular PLA campaign product targets, they're very, very similar in shopping campaigns. The main difference is how you think about creating them. So with regular PLA campaigns, you have to do that manual mapping of what's in your data feed to how you want to target in your campaign. With product groups in shopping campaigns, you saw you have that basically that drill down or that subdivide functionality where you start by targeting 100% of your inventory, and then you essentially create the product groups by slicing and dicing by brand or product type or ID, etc. So hopefully that clarifies it. Again, mostly you can think about them as being equivalent. The main difference is how you actually go about creating them in the campaign.
Yep, nothing to add here. That was perfect explanation. So thank you.
Awesome. Hopefully that clears it up for everybody with some of those questions. And again, if you guys have more detailed questions, you can reach out with a little more specific queries there. Question from Ashley: what happens to pause PLA campaigns when this switch occurs? Do they just go away?
Great question. So I should clarify that when we upgrade, I may have misspoken. We may not necessarily pause the regular PLA campaign, but at some point that will stop serving PLAs, and all the traffic will be funneled through your shopping campaign. So as far as I know, you still will have access to that to the regular PLA campaign after the auto upgrade, so that you can review data and see kind of what you were doing there. The difference, again, will simply be that it won't serve product listing ads.
Also, just one more general point there. Even if you pause the campaign on your own, you're still not going to lose that data. So when you pause that campaign, that data will exist in the AdWords interface pretty much for as long as the account exists. So you'll always be able to go back and reference that. You don't really risk any loss of data or anything like that. That'll always still exist.
Awesome. Good point. A little bit of a question going back here, back to Jeff's slides. Person wants to know, what is the item ID report highlight, and how can I use it?
So the item ID report basically just highlights item ID performance. So when you're running that report, and in my slide, I only had a few columns there just to make sure everything fit on the slide, but you can add all sorts of columns to that. You can get clicks, you can get costs, orders, revenue. Google will calculate conversion rate, ROI, all sorts of different metrics for you. And you can add all those to the report. And what that allows you to do is it allows you to see performance on an individual product level. And so like we were both discussing earlier, you really want to segment your top performing products and drill down into those IDs more specifically so that you can bid up on them, or segment out your poorest converting products so that you can bid down on those. And the way that you would use the item ID report to do that would be, well, first you would go generate it, but I would then sort by amount of spend, or sort by cost essentially, and then you can start to see what are my top cost products that are not generating orders or are generating a very poor ROI. You can segment out those individual top cost items that are really eating up your ad spend without converting and bid down on them. And conversely, you could sort that report by orders or revenue or ROI and get a sense of what are the products that are driving the most revenue for me? What are the products that are converting the best for me? You get that list of IDs, and that's the group of IDs that you can start to bid up on to get even more aggressive on than you would normally. And so that's an overview, I guess, of how we use it. Obviously, you can get quite a bit more detail than that, but if you start, again, by just looking at like the top cost items and bidding down on the ones that aren't converting, and then looking at the top conversion rate or top ROI items and bidding up on those to get more exposure, that'll be a good start.
Great. Had a couple questions about keywords and negative keywords from some different people. What is the difference between how you use keywords with text ads in AdWords and negative keywords as opposed to product listing ads with a new shopping campaign?
Yeah, so I can take a stab at that one. So with a text ad campaign, you're going to be selecting a keyword list that you want your text ad to show up for. With a Google Shopping campaign, Google is determining what searches your products are relevant for based on the data in your feed. So you're not actually selecting a keyword list. You're not bidding on keywords. You're not doing anything like that in a Google Shopping campaign. Google is using your feed to figure out what searches your product is relevant for. Now, you did mention negative keywords. You can use those in a Google Shopping campaign, and those can be an important part of the strategy. And you would use those pretty much in exactly the same way that you would use them in a text ad campaign. So if you go back to that Dimensions tab, you can run a search terms report, and you can look at what are the top search terms that are generating 0 sales. So again, I would go to that report, sort by cost, figure out what isn't converting, and you can add those as negative keywords. One thing to be wary of, though, is that when you add a negative keyword, you're eliminating all visibility from that search so that no product can show up for it. In reality, that search might have just been triggering a poor performing product, and maybe another product could do better in its place. So you definitely want to be looking at individual products to downbid as well, but a negative keyword strategy can definitely be an important part of the equation too.
Well said. Nice. Awesome. We are coming on noon, and I know that everybody's probably getting a little hungry for lunch. I know I am. So just wanted to wrap up the question section. Thank you, everybody who did ask a question. We appreciate you, and again, we'll be answering those questions moving forward. Thanks for everybody for tuning in, and very special thanks to both Nicole and Jeff. We really appreciate your expertise, and I know I'm excited to kind of dive into Google Shopping a little bit more than I had in the past. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and feel free to reach out if you have any additional questions or considerations.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.